Welcome back to the 1% podcast. This is your host, Simon Cromer, and today with me is Anna from Traveling Detailer for You. They pretty much service the entire state of Florida, a little bit of Alabama, and I'm sure some other states, but they do a lot of work around here. They do excellent work. They pretty much do detailing. They do all kinds of stuff, barnacle removal, and Anna is going to tell you all about it today. So, Anna, welcome to the podcast. Your other CEO, Steve, is not with us today, but you're going to tell us all about your story. And so tell us, how did you get into the marine industry and how has it been since?
So I actually got into the marine industry a couple years ago. I started working as an administrative assistant over at a dealership in Alabama. And that's how I met Steve. So Steve had been doing dealership on the side for a dealership. He'd been doing detailing on the side for about 16 years or so. He started out with cars and then he maneuvered his way over to boats. And so he'd been asking me for a while, like, come on, come do this boat. Like, this would be great. Come on, like, I need extra help. This is good extra money. And I kept saying, like, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm not going to be sweating outside. I'm not doing free labor. Like, it's not going to happen absolutely no way. Long story short, obviously, I caved. And so we've been doing detailing on our own. We decided to take it off as a full-on business within the both of us for a little over 2 years now.
Mhm.
So within that, he's been certified with Chaparral and Rapallo. We've been certified with Sanago for mildew prevention. So we've got a lot of, it's fun. Yeah. So that's a little bit on how I got into it, he got into it, and how, travel and detailing actually got a
Yeah.
spot into the industry. Yeah.
So you guys met at you said the boat detailership, right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's
The boat
crazy.
dealership.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's crazy. Then you guys went together, started doing cars. Or he started doing cars, right? And then you guys kind of worked on the boats together.
Yeah, so he was doing cars for a while, like he'd just been doing regular jobs, on and off, and like he'd just been having like, you'd say like little odd jobs, like on the side or whatever. And then whenever he was at the dealership that we met at, is whenever he started asking me, because he would have about, I'd say about 6 to 12 boats, give or take, at a time, just like sitting in his yard, like they need work done. We need work done. And I'm like, no, I can't do it. That's just not who I am. And so we finally took it on. It really worked out great. Yeah. So I personally never started on cars. He did.
Hmm.
I started completely straight off the boats. Yeah.
So what were you exactly doing? So you were at the dealership, and what were you doing at the time?
So I was the girl that would handle all of your paperwork. I was the girl that would go to the DMV and get your boat registered for you. They called me the boat girl whenever I'd go to the DMV. So I was that person. I was the one that would handle, I mean, just literally think about, you going to buy a car, the same
Mhm.
thing, that was me.
Okay,
So
doing all the paperwork, getting the
yeah,
registration and
and
all that stuff. Okay.
yes, it
And
was it worked out.
did
Go
you
ahead.
ever see yourself detailing? Like, did you ever see yourself like out there, detailing and doing all that kind of work? No.
Absolutely not. No, I'd look outside, although like I'm a complete outdoor person. Like I would look outside the window and just feel like a little sad puppy dog, like why am I inside? Like, why am I inside? So that's when I think that mindset right there is when I finally actually caved in and I was like, okay, yeah, let me just try it out. Which
Mhm.
is great though, because well, you can't see it now. Wait to
Yeah.
see some stars, but I'll get a
Yeah.
nice little tan.
Yeah, nice tan. Yeah, that's the best thing about being down here. So, yeah, so you've always been in kind of Florida area, would you say? Yeah.
Yeah, Florida area. I actually graduated from South Walton, which is over in a little bit northern Florida, closer to Pensacola
Oh,
area.
really? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, I mean, looking back now, are you glad you made this move to like kind of go in with like Steve and you guys are working together now? Like, was that the best thing, do you think, that happened?
Yes, um, I mean, dude, I could go on for hours, but I will not. But yes, I personally think this is the best thing that could have happened for me. I think about, going into jobs and how people talk about, oh, well, I clocked in 2 minutes late, so my lunch break needs to be, 2 minutes earlier
Hmm.
or later. And I'm like, oh, I'm just so glad that I don't have to do that anymore. As far as owning
Hmm.
business goes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of approach do you take now? Because for example, like for me, like I'm always like I love to work and I love to like make sure we're on track and getting our clients taken care of. So like, for me it's never about the hours. Like I'm ready to go. Like when I wake up in the morning, I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm ready to go. And I'm sure that's probably how you are too. It's a totally
Yes.
different experience from like being the employee to being the business owner.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I think is just so funny, and I kind of honestly used to look up to this quote and dream. This sounds a little cliche, but dream as if, like, but God, I would love for my life to be like that. But is it really considered a job if you completely enjoy what you do and love what you're doing while you're doing it? To me, like, I don't even feel like I go to work. I'm excited to wake up in the morning at 7:30, 6 a.m., depending on, where we're going, what job we have going on, and how long it takes to get there, and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I get excited to wake up in the morning and to get there and to meet these new customers and meet these new people and experience all of the joy that we have, because it's fun. Honestly, it really is. I mean, I look at them as like they're like toys, they're just like adult toys. Like it's just fun to get out on the water, whether you go skiing or you go fishing or whatever it may be. You get the opportunity to like spend time with family, friends, whatever,
Mhm.
or some peace and quiet, and to be able to help those people out, like whatever they get to do, it is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I always tell people that I have like the best job because like I'm out on the water, I'm in the boat industry. Like I think the boating industry is awesome because like it's like a fun industry, like people buy boats for family, for fun, to go out and travel, and it's just like a great community to be in. And like every day I'm on the water. Like this past whole week we were working in Bradenton, and we were like looking at manatees every day. Like it's the best stuff being down here. You're gonna see a lot, you get to be out on the water, you get a lot of sun. Like for me, like that's just my type of life, and it's amazing stuff. And sometimes my friends always tell me they're like, you work too much, and like because I'm always trying to like work on the weekends as well. I mean, I'm sure you guys are probably like that too, but on the weekends I'm like doing paperwork and computer stuff, and I'm always doing something. Like there's always that next big thing to kind of reach. So I'm sure it's kind of the same with you. But I want to talk a little bit about like some of the services. So like what services do you guys do? What are you best at? And yeah, because I know you guys do quite a bit. So I was kind of interested to kind of learn more.
Yeah, so I mean, we do well, I mean, we do a good amount of services. We do mold removal, we do mold prevention, which is actually one thing that I think is a really, really big point in the industry because there's a lot of mold removal. You can remove it, but preventing it is a very big next step that you don't see a lot happening going on right now. We also have bottom paint. We do fiberglass and gel coat. I'm sorry, fiberglass and gel coat repair. Barnacle removal. There's a lot of things that we do. The only thing that anything that you can think of cosmetic wise, we take care of. There's no, technician mechanical aspects to it that we do. So anything cosmetics,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Yeah, I know you guys do a lot of stuff and you guys are really good at what you do. One thing, like we're definitely gonna touch on mold and mildew here coming up in the podcast, but one thing we wanted to kind of talk about as we really dive in is with you being like the first girl that I've had on a podcast, we kind of want to talk about how there's so many, males in the industry and why do you think the industry is predominantly male, in your opinion?
So, well, in my opinion, what I've noticed is I think it's just more, I mean, like honestly, maybe it's gender roles. I don't know, but what I have noticed that there is a insight about 15 to 85%. Okay, so you have 15 women, 85% men. So it is predominantly male in the industry. But I think women have a lot of things that they can, you know, bring forth that, maybe men cannot in
Mm-hmm.
certain ways. Me personally, to me, the way that I feel it is quality work is quality work.
Mm-hmm.
You can, how does anybody become an astronaut? How does anybody become a doctor? You learn how to do it. Anybody can learn how to do it.
Right.
Um, but there was an article that I actually read recently. It was by a woman named Jessica, and I'm going to butcher this last name, Shambo.
Okay.
something like that. But she had mentioned how biologically, women focus on more detail than men
Mhm.
do. So if you want to ask me as far as like, maybe like the thoroughness,
Mhm.
maybe women might be able to bring forth a little bit more than that. Maybe that's why there's always been this stereotypical joke about women cleaning. I don't know. Who knows? To me, that's just funny. But you know, there's a lot of things that women can bring forth, and granted, it is predominantly male, but it is equalized.
Mhm.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, hopefully this will change moving forward. I think, I've known a lot of women detailers. They always are focused, like attention to detail. Like that's one thing I've always noticed is like I'll see car detailers. Like you said, there are not as many, but when I do see them, they're very detail oriented. I used to work with a lady back in Ohio. She ran one of the finest shops actually for car detailing, and I mean she was on it. Like she knew everything inside and out, and the attention to detail was like it was way up there. I'm sort of like what I always say is like I'm not a perfectionist. I'm kind of a big picture person. So like, but sometimes like I think you're right. I think women naturally have like that attention to detail that maybe us men or not all of us may have. So moving forward, hopefully things will change and like we'll get more women into the industry. And there's so many opportunities. There's so many paths that people can dive into. So even if they don't want to do detailing, there's other things you can do. So gel coat repair. I think that's personally, I don't think that's, I think that's something that women can be great at, and you don't see a whole lot in that part of the industry. So, any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Just like you said, and a little bit of what I said earlier, nobody's born an astronaut, nobody's born a doctor.
Mhm.
You can learn all of these traits and all of these skills and all of this. So, if you want to be a woman that wants to be a gel coat and fiberglass repair girl, do it. You can learn it. If you want to be the girl that wants to buff and wax boat, do it. You can learn it. It's there. We may be biologically built differently, but that doesn't mean the same skills can't be
Hmm.
applied.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's great. And there's so many opportunities. Like there's a big need right now too for like repair and like gel coat repairs and stuff like that. Like just the opportunity too, and that you can get out of it. So there's a need that we need to fill. And I guess yeah. So a little bit about the biological part. I mean, has anything been like challenging for you that you've noticed, or that you would want to mention?
So maybe not. Well, I guess you could consider
Uh,
this towards like the biological part. One of the biggest things that I could maybe consider to be
mhm.
overcoming for me is profiling in a way. And I actually learned this whenever I had a job in roofing. And so I would, knock on these doors after, it's going up on the roof, and I'd talk to
Uh,
these big, like these husband men or whatever, and they would have this expression on their face like this girl, this little 5 foot blonde little girl is going to tell me anything about my roof.
mm,
Seriously? They'd look at me as like she doesn't know what she's talking about, kind of expression on their face. And that was kind of something that flooded a little bit over into this industry as well, because of the fact that it is predominantly male. That a lot of the times, whenever I can, and whenever I do insert myself into something at the very beginning, you'll start to notice like a little bit of like a head tilt, like
mm,
yeah, okay, yeah, she knows it. But the more I keep talking and insert my
mm,
knowledge and understanding of what it is that I'm talking about, the chemicals that I use, the processes, understanding just the industry in general, it really overrides the hey, women in the industry, and it almost in a way puts it in a more like intimidating stand,
mhm. Yeah, I can
if
see
that
exactly
makes
what
any
you're saying.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see exactly what you're saying. Like from the start, like you really have to be knowledgeable and show that you can, do what you're saying you're gonna do and really show the knowledge and experience that, maybe us men probably are more naturally like we're just we look like we can do it and we can go out there and buff the boat. So I guess, obviously you've overcome a lot of obstacles. Would you want to share some of those with us? Some of the obstacles that maybe you have faced just within the first few years of business?
Yeah, well, really, that's a big
Hmm.
one right there. Is
Right,
a
the one
little
you
bit
just
of a
mentioned.
profiling.
Hmm.
Yeah, not only that, but for me, it was also a lot more mental as well, as far as, because of the fact that I'd already kind of learned that previously from another job that I had. It really kind of stopped me from putting and inserting myself further more into the industry because I just almost thought of like, well, nobody's going to take me seriously. Nobody looks at me as if I even know what I'm talking about, like I'm just like I'm a 5 foot little girl, like
Makes it
who's
that
gonna,
much
yeah,
harder. Yeah.
she's gonna talk to me about fiberglass and gel coat. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
Mhm.
Like, you know what I mean? So that was a personal thing that I also had to, and it correlates with the professionalism as well. But it was a personal, understanding towards myself to realize, and this is maybe something that other women can relate to, like you don't have to fall back and realize, just because of the fact that it is predominantly male and they may take a male more seriously than you, but know what you're talking about, like understand what you're saying, be professional with it, and they will take you seriously because a lot of the times, not to, disregard women in a way, but some of us can be a little, la di da. And I'll just say la di da,
Right.
but be professional, like really show, what you're talking about. Not only that, but having some type of portfolio as far as a social media account will really help forth, to show that, you have clientele and you have credibility, you know.
Right. Building a reputation, understanding the work, those are the biggest things that you think would definitely help. Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I think too is like, you mentioned like one thing that women really do well that maybe men sometimes don't is you said like attention to detail. Was there anything else that you think, that maybe men can do as well that you think women would have a great opportunity in?
Unless we're talking about carrying babies, no, not
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, because the way that I see it is I myself, I'm personally not a feminist. I'm generally a person for equality unless there is something that is biologically made differently between the genders. There's no reason why one cannot do the other and vice versa.
Right. And a lot of the industry in the marine is honestly a lot of it's skills. So as long as you learn the skill and you're willing to and you like what you're doing, you have a passion for it, anybody can learn anything. So and then
Yeah.
just, building the right team around you, from a business owner perspective, a woman can do quite a bit. So I think the potential is unlimited. So yeah, so I guess the last thing really is like, what's your best advice for women? Like why do you think people don't get started, and what would your advice be to women to kind of get started in the marine industry and really have the
Well,
confidence to get
yeah.
started?
Well, I'll tell you this. I feel like regardless of marine industry or industry of this or whatever, I feel like a lot of people don't take the step towards business because they're always like, well, I gotta wait for this and I need this and oh, I need it. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Shut up. Just do it. I feel like you're honestly gonna learn a lot more about the business and the industry as far as actually going through it and doing it than you would learning about it in college or maybe in a textbook or whatever. As far as women go within the industry, I think women can actually use the fact that there aren't as many women in the industry. Use that to your advantage. Shock people. You know, kind of how my 5 foot little blonde girl self does.
Hmm.
I look at it and they're like, "There's you don't know," and I'm like, that was
Hmm.
probably not loud enough. But yeah, but absolutely just use that to your advantage as far as make your way, insert yourself. Like I said before, show your professionalism. Make sure that you're known and that you're seen, but you have to know your products. You have to know what works and what doesn't work. Otherwise, you can either really do good or you can really
Mm-hmm.
destroy a boat
Mm-hmm.
completely. And we're talking a good amount of money here. So make sure you know your information and your knowledge.
Do you think, I mean, one thing too is like, so you said, obviously don't talk yourself out of it, the number one thing. Don't, a lot of people talk themselves out of doing a lot of things and getting started. But do you think like maybe also it's like a lack of interest? Do you think that has to do a little bit too with lack of women in the industry? You say, or not really?
I mean, I believe that it could be. Because and the reason why I say that is because of within the time of me working at the boat dealership while as the administrative assistant, the majority of the time it was always men coming to buy the boats. The men wanted to go fishing. The men, and it was always the men wanting to do it, not the women didn't want to take their kids out to go,
Mm-hmm.
water skiing or tubing or whatever. Uh, and I kind of hate to say it, but maybe it's more of like a gender role. You kind of see like
Okay.
the man kind of doing this type of job. Same with like, for example, landscaping. You don't see a lot of women, doing a lot of landscaping either. Maybe it's a gender role type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Maybe even like construction a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the way that I see it is, I mean, if you're interested, do it. If you're not, then don't,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great. And really, I think you're a special person. It does take a lot of courage to be in the industry like this, but you really know your stuff. You're really you're really focused and you're really ready to grow. So I know you're doing a great job and I'm very, very proud of what you're doing. So what do you think? I mean, moving forward, like do you think you're going to kind of help women in the industry? Like, do you have women reach out to you? On occasion, like, hey, like, what's your experience? And should they reach out, if any girls watching this podcast, should they reach out to you and kind of talk to you about your experience and kind of some of the stuff that you've overcome?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a few women reach out to me already. It was, a few about the industry and then a couple just about, business on
Hmm.
its own. But absolutely, yeah, definitely reach out to me if you have any questions. And if anything, just realize women, we are power. We've got it. There is no lack, there's no hesitation. Don't even think about it. We have
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I agree exactly with everything that you're saying, and yeah, I think that's a great little last thing to end on before we go ahead and jump in. We're gonna jump into a little bit more of kind of working on the boats, and really the first thing that we wanted to talk about is I want to dive into boat maintenance. So Anna, how important would you say boat maintenance is, and if you don't do boat maintenance, what will happen?
I would say boat maintenance is pretty important, whether you're talking about cosmetic appearance or the actual functionality of your boat. So it's definitely very, very important. I would say, you know, at least at the bare minimum, get your boat detailed 2 times a year at the bare minimum. My personal preference would be first before season starts, and then second right before season ends, before you put your boat up for, whether it's winter or any type of long-term non-use. Another thing that I think is extremely important is make sure you rinse your boat down every single time you come out of the water. Every single time. That will get rid of the sunscreen that has been used on your boat. That'll get rid of salt. That'll get rid of air pollution and anything else that can cause any type of cosmetic or actual functional damage on your boat as far as, simplicity goes.
Mhm. Okay, so when you say like the beginning of season and the end of season, what exactly do you mean by that? Because I know we have viewers all over the country, so so kind of explain like for someone who's down here in Florida what that would mean, and maybe someone who only's got their boat in for 6 months out of the year.
Right. Okay. So what I mean for that is generally the area that I cover as far as detailing goes is on the Gulf Coast. So on the Gulf Coast you have fishing season, you've got summer, you've got off season. So what I mean by that is if you're in the area down here, make sure that if you're about to take your boat out, make sure you get it detailed and make sure everything's, you flush your oil, everything's running good as far as before you get your boat running out on the water. If you're somewhere that you don't necessarily store your boat generally for a long period of time, regardless, still, same thing. At least 2 times a year. I don't care if it's before, after, if you don't have a boating season, at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, at least 2 times a year, I think is the bare minimum that your boat needs that required maintenance. Like I said, as far as cosmetic or functionality in the most simplistic form.
Okay, and then so assuming that the boat got detailed properly, so would you just recommend like every 6 months like a cut and a polish, or do you guys go a little more extensive, like you get some compound out, like kind of how would you recommend that type of maintenance, and what protection form do you guys recommend as well, like wax, a polymer sealant, ceramic coatings?
Yeah, okay, so as far as that goes, I mean, there's different types of boating people. I noticed, some people don't care to have, their boat to the highest standard. But if we are talking about the highest standard, about 2 to 3 months, I would consider applying a new coat of wax or compound on your boat to make sure, that boat is easily being able to glide through the water. Another thing is mold prevention. Because the further that the mold sits on your seats, it seeps into the upholstery, which actually ends up ruining and damaging the functionality of your seats in the long run. So make sure you have a mold prevention. I would say at least every 3 months is a good number. It depends on the area that you're in, depending on humidity and certain, area factors like that. But certain things like that, definitely. If you have a boat that's not able to get out of the water, then your maintenance may be a little bit different as far as, your propeller and your engine and certain things like that. So definitely look into certain detailers that fit the functionality of your boat and what you're looking to make sure you're trying to maintain.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and dive into that mold and mildew kind of rabbit hole, because just as well as I do, mold and mildew down here is like a never ending problem, especially on vinyl, even on gel coat fiberglass. If your boat hasn't been maintained, you're absolutely right. You're going to get mold and mildew. And one thing I noticed too is once you get a lot of mold and mildew, it's a lot harder to get out moving forward. So, if your seats have been, filled with mold and mildew for a long time, it's going to take a long time to get that out, because it really gets into those seats. And like you were saying, it kind of really gets inside and into the middle of them. And I think it's really important, just like you said, to really wash down your boat. When it comes to so you say like every time the boat comes back from when they took it out, like the owner took it out, they come back, so they should at least spray down their boat, right? Like with water, are you saying they should wash their boat?
Well, I mean, there's a couple different forms as far as it. There's a couple boat owners that I know where all that they do is just spray it down with water, and that's their go to as far as that takes up all of the chemicals that they use as far as sunscreen or anything like that goes. There's also a really good product that's called Salt Away. You just put it onto your hose and you just spray it off, or you spray it as far as, you're rinsing off your boat, and that takes off any kind of pollution at all. Not only does it just rinse your boat off, but it actually takes away, the salt and air pollution and everything like that. But the point that I'm trying to make is you want to make sure that, because whenever you're taking your boat on the water, whether you're doing it for, fishing, or you're doing it for water sports or whatever it may be, you're getting a lot of, whether it is iron from the water or whatever it can be, because iron from the water and certain chemicals can form. There's a chemical in certain sunscreen. It's called Azabon. I'm butchering this. I'm not saying it. Azabon, something like that. But what it does is it, correlates with the iron and the water, and that's what causes the yellow, rusty kind of stain. So at least at the bare minimum, just rinse it off, make sure everything that you have used on the boat is at least getting off of your boat. Because while the sun and everything is hitting on the boat, that sun plays a huge effect on what's baking and sitting onto either your seat or, certain pontoons. They have carpet, rug, whether it's, leather, anything like that, it can really play a big role and a huge part of, the maintenance and appearance of your boat.
Right, absolutely. If you've got sunscreen sitting on your seats and you're not rinsing down your boat, you're not removing that chemical. So I think you're right. I think the salt's gone. A salt away product like that is the best option to do every time that you bring your boat back in. And also it's going to be safe to use on, waxes, sealants, coatings. So that's the best thing to do. And yeah, you're right. I mean, if you got sunscreen sitting on your seats, it's gonna get in there, it's gonna be yellow. And I think sometimes, maybe boaters don't know that. So did you want to talk a little bit about the sunscreen? So I know you said there's like a chemical in the sunscreen that turns your boat seats yellow. So obviously that's actually something I did not know. So I'm very happy you mentioned that. And if you wanted to kind of just expand a little bit more on that and maybe what they can do to prevent that, like should they be putting towels on their seats or should they just simply, be washing their boat and or are there any sunscreens that you maybe know of that perhaps don't, have those harsh chemicals that would do something like that?
So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not somebody that's too specific as far as like, I'm not, picking up my sunscreen and like looking at it, like I'm not too specific. You buy a boat to have fun, right? You're on a boat to have fun. You're not buying you know what I mean? So like, there are certain sunscreen that do not have this chemical in it. And like I said, I'll say it again, and I know I'm going to butcher it. It's called Azabon, something like that. Anyway, but this specific chemical reacting with the iron and the water and the sun will cause your seat or fiberglass, vinyl seats or fiberglass, to turn a orange, yellow, rust color. And that is extremely hard to get off. Actually harder than mold to get off. But as far as, I don't think that anybody should not wear sunscreen. I think sunscreen is a huge protectant. You absolutely have to. I don't think you need to put any towels down. I don't think you need to do anything like that. Just as long as after you get off the boat, just rinse it off. Rinse it off. Like I said, the salt away, honestly, I preferably believe to be the best way to do it, because not only water doesn't always get everything off, it really doesn't, especially after, if you've been on the boat for a really long day and you have that sun baking everything in, it's going to sit and it's going to stay. It doesn't matter how much water. You can use a pressure washer. It's not going to get it off. It's baked in. But definitely the salt away, if not only just rinsing your boat off, but the salt away would be your best as far as just like simple, regular maintenance.
Yeah, and then for mold and mildew, you mentioned having a good system for that. So what system do you guys use and would you recommend for, people continually dealing with the mold and mildew growth and, really, also like, how to block it out from coming back? What would you say?
So mold and mildew, it's really hard because honestly, it's a very tricky subject, because you can't necessarily 100% prevent it. It really depends on humidity. It depends on, the area of the location of where you're in, sun exposure, darkness, dampness, certain things like that. But what we do is we've always used and we don't have it right now, but I will pretend, our sweat in a bottle product. And so what we do is we just spray that onto where the infected area is. We let that soak in for a little bit and rinse it off. And after we do that, the important thing though is you can get rid of mold and mildew easily, but just as easily as you get rid of it, it's just as easily to come back. So that's why we don't only just stop at getting rid of it, we actually prevent it. So our prevention that we use is through Xanaga Marine, and it prevents the mold and mildew from coming back for about 3 months at a time, give or take. It depends on certain areas, and like I said before, humidity, dampness, certain areas like that. So, but it does take about 3 months, give or take, to come back. So it is a good prevention, and if you're very, interested and high maintenance towards the quality of your boat, this is a really good maintenance service that is
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been a huge fan. I've also used Xanago Marine, the prevention system. It's their mold and mildew prevention product. So yeah, I definitely do think it helps. I've noticed that it does help. What the exact time frame is, I don't know, but I know they do say like up to 90 days. And you're right. Just as fast as you can get mold and mildew off is gonna come back just as fast. So, I think the huge key, like you said, using that prevention system, that's really one of the only prevention systems in the marine industry that I'm really aware of, and I think it's one of the most effective ones. So yeah, so shout out to them. And then yeah, I also think, about being out in the sun. So really the sunlight, the humidity, being around the water, the salt, that's really going to increase the mold and mildew growth from my understanding. So, getting it out of the sun, I always see a huge difference. So any of our clients that have like boats under canopies, typically not going to be as bad, but yeah, absolutely. You gotta be maintaining these once a month, wash them down, and then do those products. So yeah, I think it does. And a lot of people, at the end of the day, like you said, a lot of people want to have a boat, they want to have fun, but they might not want to do the maintenance part. So that's just kind of, that's kind of part of owning a boat, especially down here in Florida. So yeah, I think those were great things about mold and mildew, and really about, and the sunscreen thing, because that's a huge thing. And like you said, we're not saying don't wear sunscreen, but wear your sunscreen and then take care of your seats afterwards. Now, another thing we wanted to talk about is kind of like so a little bit about like barnacles, because I know you guys do. So a lot of people don't really, from my understanding, do like barnacle removal, but I've seen you guys do, and you guys are pretty successful at it. So how do you guys go about barnacle removal? And I think I saw a video of you guys doing a pontoon. Have you done any like boats as well, like Jelco boats?
So the only barnacle removal that we have done so far has actually only been on a pontoon. And I'll tell you, it was a whole process. It was a lot. We actually had to scrape a lot of the barnacles. I mean, I wish I could show you like a visual representation of like what we had to do, but we had to scrape a lot of the barnacles off. Then after that, we power washed all of it. The tune, power wash all the tunes. Then we sanded all of it down so it could be to a clear, or not a clear, but like a soft, even surface.
Mm-hmm.
Then we buff and wax the entire rest of it. But as far as prevention goes, as long as your boat is in the water, you can't necessarily prevent barnacles from getting on your boat. It's just gonna happen. So either you make sure your boat's out of the water, or because the point is with barnacles being on the tunes of your pontoon, that completely slows your boat down. So you're also having to spend more money on gas or, whatever, to make sure that your boat is able to, glide efficiently throughout the water. So I definitely think that barnacle removal, depending on your boat, is a very big type of maintenance. And the larger your boat gets, there's also a lot of people, different detailers that specialize in this specific type of business.
Mm-hmm.
Scuba divers, actually, in a way, there's scuba divers that go and dive underneath to make sure to get all the barnacles off the bottom, and make sure that the bottom of the boat is actually specifically clean to where it can, and the propellers are good to make sure it glides a little bit more efficiently through the water. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like making sure you either have your boat on a lift, right, somewhere, or being out of the water, right, taking your boat in and out. So you're not gonna really prevent barnacles if your boat's in the water. I think the important part though is maybe to have bottom paint, because from my understanding that makes it easier to clean. So and I've even seen bottom paint on pontoons, believe it or not, on the like bottom half. So I've always noticed those hold up a little better as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good point. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so they do that as well. And then yeah, so is it reasonable to actually get all the barnacles off? Like even when you're scuba diving, like I know you guys aren't specialized in that part, and I'm not either, but is it reasonable to like get all of them off, or are they just kind of scraping, like kind of knocking them down occasionally just to really keep it from really getting back? Because I think the longer your boat's in the water, like the worse it's gonna get.
Yeah, honestly, that's a really good question, because here's the thing. Once you get them off that one time, what are you going to do? Put your boat back in the water and they're going to come back right again, right?
That's
So
right.
is it reasonable? I don't know. You ask the customer.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And one thing too is like, sometimes people will store their boats for longer periods of time. So I know like, especially in this market, we've got a lot of snowbirds and or even up north where people are actually taking their boats out of the water. What's the best way? Let's go ahead and just focus down here though. What's the best way for someone to store their boat when they're away? So, does that mean covering the boat up, making sure they have it detailed, and then maybe even a little bit about the winterizing part of it when they're not going to be using their boat for, a few months. So how would you go about that? And what do you guys usually do?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of good points as far as winterizing your boat, and there's actually a lot of different ways to winterize your boat depending on, what kind of boat you have. But there's a good amount of key points that kind of go towards that. And if you give me just 1 second, I actually kind of wrote some down just because it's okay. So like one thing that I always think about doing is making sure to run your boat one more time to make sure that you don't hear any issues. There's nothing else, kind of like going on with that. And definitely make sure to remove all of, extra materials, like as far as life jackets, flares, anything as far as electronics, anything that doesn't form any part of the vessel. I feel like would definitely be a good thing to do as far as winterizing or storing your boat for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that goes, after you've gotten all of the, all of the extras out of your boat, make sure to clean it. Like I said earlier, I always think the best times to detail your boat is before season starts, if there is a season where you're at, or before you store it for a little bit of time. And then after that, make sure you drain your boat out, as far as, just make sure all the water is out of the bilge pump, everything that you have. Make sure you lubricant all of your metal parts as far as bolts, you want to make sure everything is just lubricated.
Mm-hmm.
And then run your battery and make sure to remove it. I feel like removing your battery is a really good part of this. Like, make sure to not just, take it out, but just like remove it. And then obviously, definitely seal your exhaust ports, because I can't tell you how many times we've detailed a boat and we open a compartment and there's like a wasp nest of just angry wasps that are just like ready to get out, and they're like just like storming out of it. So definitely like seal your ports. That way, pests and any type of nasty bugs don't get in there. And then at the very end, cover it and definitely store it for the winter or whatever it is that you're storing your boat for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great checklist for, people to follow who are going to be doing that. And so the battery thing, so you say actually so don't just turn the batteries off, like actually take them out of the boat and store them like
Yes.
somewhere dry, like somewhere in a safe place, not gonna get like humidity and all that stuff, right?
Yes, because if you're thinking about humidity, you think about moisture. I mean, like I said earlier, lubricating your metal parts, and if you think about moisture and it's sitting on there, it can cause corrosion. If you're thinking about months on end, why not just go ahead and take it out, making sure that it's staying safe instead of in a area where if you have your boat like at a marina sitting in an area like that, that generally has a lot of moisture in that area, which is not going to be good for the battery.
Yes, absolutely. And then when you mention like kind of lubricating like all the metal parts, like what do you exactly mean by that?
Like bolts, hinges,
Okay.
as far as your compartments go, making sure all those are lubricated.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's a great checklist. That's something I'm not really kind of specialized in, so we don't do a whole lot of, preparing for winterization or anything like that. So yeah, so those are great steps. And then, really, how so I kind of wanted to, we're gonna be wrapping up this pretty soon because I know we've probably about 40, 50 minutes in. So what would you say, like what have you learned most about, just being with Steve, you guys doing the business together and and even, about detailing? What would you say you've learned so far?
Honestly, realistically, products. know your products,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of detailers that I've heard of that have used certain products on a boat, and it's actually kind of destroyed, as far as the latches go. They tried to rust remove, and they've like literally destroyed latches. As far as, working smarter, not harder. For us, for example, we have a lot of clientele. We travel a good bit. We don't have the time to wait 30 minutes to an hour for one of our products to work. I do the inside, the interior, and he does the exterior as far as like, buff and waxing and whatnot. And so I don't have the time to wait, an hour for a certain product to use, so know your products, know what you're doing. Like I said, knowledge is everything. Honestly, I feel like knowledge is everything. As once you know what works and what doesn't work, that working smarter, not harder, that's it. Like, that's it.
Absolutely. And that continues, no matter how long you're in the industry, that's what it's always about, having the right products, finding better products, saving time, working smarter. And so one thing you did mention about the rust is, how would you go about properly removing like rust on hatches and stuff to make sure that you're not actually ruining them?
So, as I don't want to give away too much, but earlier, like I had mentioned, there is a product that we're going to be coming out with for mold removal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's also a product that we've been using for a while to remove rust on boats. And that is our magic rust remover, but I can't give away too much, but that is the product. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I respect that. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's really important because you're right. There's definitely things that can damage. Like, are there any products that you know of off the top of your head that would like damage something like that? Like that you guys have used or seen?
Oh, yes. Actually, and you know what's so funny? You taught me this. Magic erasers. Not good for boat cushions, like upholstery.
Mm-hmm.
Not good at all because of the like sand grit that it has within the magic eraser. So that was actually something that we used to do within the very beginning of when we started. And when I had heard you say that, I was like, done.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely no more. Because I always feel like there's so much more to learn. There's so much more of a better way. You can always look up and say, oh, because actually you can look online and say, oh, well, magic erasers really don't do that or whatever. But after the knowledge and understanding of everything that we know, it does, so learning a better way to be able to remove whatever you're wanting to, without having to destroy, like what you're trying to, literally
trying to protect and
make better. Yes.
Yeah. So
exactly.
Right. So people want to, get out the magic erasers, really get scrub around those seats, but it's gonna
Don't do that. Yes.
off.
Don't do the magic erasers. They're not good. I'm telling you, they're really not good.
Right.
You told me first.
Right. And people use them on all parts of the boat. They actually strip your gel coat as well.
Yes.
And you'll notice, you'll be able to see it. So definitely detailing is, you'd be better off to buff something out rather than to use a magic eraser like on gel coat or products. Really, like you said, products are everything. That's why we continue to search for the best products, and that's why we use some of the brands that we do. I think that's absolutely an amazing point. And I mean, what advice do you have for someone beginning? Because I know you've been doing this for a couple of years, but it's not like you've been doing this for like 15 or 20. So what advice would you have for like beginners? Because I know you've been doing a lot of growth and kind of growing the business and learning stuff. What would you have advice for?
Honestly, do it. Just do it. Because here's the thing, you'll learn so much more about actually doing it and being in the process and the steps than you would learn ever anywhere. Like, for example, Steve Jobs, he always says, you're somebody that works and you make $30,000 a year, but you want to make $1 million a year. Then you get to make $50,000 a year, but you're not happy that you're not making $50,000 a year because you want that million. But you have to learn the steps, right? Do it. Learn the steps. learn what it is, because you just have to jump in, and it'll just kind of, as far as advice goes, that's all I have. Just do it, because every business is different for everybody else. Like, it's not, whether it's still you're wanting to do detailing or anything like that whatsoever. It's all different. So just do it. Everything's going to be different, and it'll be a great process.
Right. I think everyone is kind of where they're at, for a reason. Like, you got to be able to find your blind spots. Maybe you're really good in this part, not good at that part. So just continuing to grow and learning new stuff is a key. And like there's always so many different aspects, right? You've got sales, you've got marketing, you've got actually doing the work. And, for me, I've been, trying to find my blind spots and seeing like, can I hire that out, or can I actually like improve in that spot? So that's kind of what we're doing. And so you guys, you guys travel all over the state. You do like a lot of work all over. How has that been? Like, do you really like traveling? Like, what's your guys' business like model? And like, are you guys like to go to your clients, right? Like to go to you don't just stay in an area, which I think is really cool.
So absolutely. Our motto is, honestly, wherever the job's needed, like, we'll be. So we actually recently just got back from Miami. We were also featured in a magazine over in Boca Raton. We just got back from Naples, which is right generally from that area, but it was within a couple weeks standpoint. We're about to go to New Jersey. We're about to go to Arizona, California. So we love it. Generally, we don't have to do it. We don't have to travel, but that's what we love. And that's one of our biggest aspects. Like, that's why we bring it into the business, is because we both actually love to do it. So if it's something that you love to do and you have so much fun doing it, is it actually really considered work? That's just, it doesn't feel like we're working, honestly. Like, it really doesn't.
Yeah, and to me, it looks like you guys are having a blast. You're traveling. You're doing what you like. You're gonna be going in all different places. And yeah. So, is there anywhere like? So you mentioned, are you guys gonna be coming out with a new product? Is that something we should mention on the podcast to stay tuned for?
Yeah.
So you guys,
Yeah.
so you're coming out with a new product,
Absolutely.
and that's for, you said, what is that for exactly? Is that for rust or for mold and mildew?
So, well, it's both. So we have two new, I say two only. We've never put any products out before. So the first one that we'll be coming out with is a mold remover. And this is something that we've been using ever since the beginning that we've been starting to detail. We've tried other products as far as mold removing products, but we have never, ever, 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 ever seen one to work as good as the small, cute little concoction that we came up with. It reminds me of like when you're a kid and you're like playing with shampoo with like this stuff or whatever.
Right.
But we came up with that, and then after doing that, fast forward a couple months, we started getting big into rust removal. So we started playing around with that a little bit, and now also, we have a rust removal product coming out as well. So we have two products coming out: mold removal, rust removal. Yeah.
All right, so everyone needs to stay tuned for that. And do you guys have a release date yet, or are you kind of still in the works?
Yeah, still in the works. Unfortunately, it's we're so busy as far as like traveling goes, because there is, for example, the Gulf Coast, it does have an on and off season, but we travel here and there so much that there isn't really necessarily so much as an on and off season. And the process of getting it out there is taking a little bit longer than expected, but hopefully by fall of 2023. Yeah, we should have it out. Yeah.
And what are the obstacles with like having a product? What obstacles have you guys had to kind of overcome? Is it just a long process?
It's a long process. As far as making sure everything, you have to make sure that, your chemicals, react well. You have to make sure it's FDA approved. You have to, as far as safety goes, and, certain things like that. So there's a lot more that I can say once the result is finished. I don't want to say too much now because I don't want to speak on things that I haven't, fulfilled yet. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can like my listeners follow you guys? Like where you guys have a website, social media? Where can they go follow your journey? Because I know they're gonna want to, because you guys got a lot of stuff coming, and you guys are just continuing to do more and do more. So where can they find you at?
Yeah, so y'all can follow us on Instagram at Traveling Detailer. We also have a YouTube account. We don't have any YouTube videos. We're in the process. We have a few shorts, but also Traveling Detailer. Basically anything you can find us on is Traveling Detailer.
Okay,
Just imagine rainbow.
All right, and then are there any last things you want to say, or where do you see yourself? Where do you see the business heading in the future? Are you guys gonna expand more? Is it just gonna be you and Steve? What are your plans, or what do you think?
So in the future, I definitely feel like we will expand more because of the fact that we do have so much clientele, and from just the time that we've been working, we've been accumulating a lot. So we have business in multiple different states. So eventually we will have to end up hiring employees. We're not at that point yet, especially because we're so skeptical. We don't want to just hire, because we've thought about it a good bit. We don't want to just hire any type of employees. We really want people that have the same vision and the same ambition that we do as far as the quality of work goes. We don't want somebody that's just kind of looking for a paycheck. We want somebody that actually cares, about what, and not that it's their business, but what we kind of built up, that gives a care about the quality of work that it takes to maintain and detail a boat. So we know that's coming up here in the future. Can't tell you exactly when, but yeah, no, we're very excited. The business is definitely growing, and yeah, we're really happy.
All right, so guys, go follow Anna. Go follow Traveling Detailer for you. They said Traveling Detailer on all platforms: website, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. So, yeah, so that's gonna be a wrap to the podcast. Thanks for coming on, Anna. And enjoy the rest of your day.